Jerry. Jerry. It's time to get up, Jerry.
There are so many colors.
It's time, Jerry. You knew this time was coming. Today's the day.
No. But we said that we would wait for a more important review.
It's too late now, Jerry.
No, it's
time to do it.
It's not time.
You're ready,
I'm
Jerry.
not ready. I haven't been ready for years. And now is not a good time to start.
It's happening whether you like it or not, Jerry. Time to do Carcassonne. You're ready, Jerry. Let's do this.
God help us all. I need to train.
Carcassonne, Carcassonne, digga digga digga, Carcassonne, 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 yeah.
A tile to make your city space into a country. Draw new tiles now. I hope I don't get another road that would blow oh so hard. So many times you've entrusted me. I've done my time, played my tiles. But now the punchline comes when I turn on you. I've been here waiting for my time. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the steel, screwing you out of your stupid city. You can build all you want to, I'll just tear it down, 'cause my goal all along was to win. And I won. Now you try to place a farm, but I block you off with my meatball. There's just no way that I'll let you by. It is now that you'll die in my arms. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the moment when I steal all the points that you've ever worked for. If you want a team sport, then you should have played brisk, and I'm screwing you out of your points.
Carcassonne is a game of tile laying for 2 to 5 players. The game in and of itself is pretty simple. It's the strategy in playing that is pretty deep. The game comes with a bunch of tiles and all these meeples. And on your turn, it sounds deceptively simple, but it's your choices that are hard to make. The game will start off with this particular tile put into the center of the board, and every tile subsequently will be laid next to that. On your turn, you draw a tile and you place a tile, and where you place that tile will actually influence whether or not you set one of your many multicolored meeples down. Depending on what you draw, you could do any of the following. If you draw a tile with a road, you could actually connect that to an already existing road, or you could actually place it against some grassland or farm and start a new road. On your turn, when you play a tile, it is your choice. You can take one of your meeples, and you do have a limited supply, and actually place it on said feature. When you do that, you're basically claiming it as your own, and any points that subsequently may come from it. There are also cities. Rules are exactly the same as roads. Cities must connect to cities, or you must start a new city if and so you can. Cloisters are a little bit different. When you actually place them, it does not matter what goes around them, just that something eventually does go around them. That is how they gain their points. When you've claimed something over the course of the subsequent turns of the game, you will actually add tiles to it to make it grow. So if you draw more city tiles, you'll add them to one you already have, or start a new one, but most likely add them to ones you already have, because you're going to want to try and complete them. You will not get your meeples back until you've actually finished a feature. So let's say that you stick one of your little green meeples on something and it never gets finished, you've lost that meeple for the majority of the game. If you lose all your meeples to things that can't be finished or things you just don't finish, well then any tiles down the road you draw, you're not going to be able to claim them if you start to build something that may be worth a lot of points. So there is a little bit of meeple management, I guess you could say, which is a phrase I honestly never thought I would use in my life. Point scoring goes as follows. Roads, no matter what, are always worth 1 point. Most tiles are worth more points when you finish them, but roads are one of the few that no matter what, however many tiles long a road is, it is worth 1 point. Cities. If you finish a city, it is actually worth 2 points for every tile, plus 2 points for anything that might have this little flag symbol on it. If you do not finish them by the end of the game, then it is just 1 point per tile and 1 point per flag. Cloisters are worth 1 point for both itself and every single tile that goes around it. So if you finish it, you get 9 points, take your meeple back. If you don't, at the end of the game, you just count the cloister tile and any tiles that are around it. It is possible to steal points in this game. It is rather difficult, but it is possible. You can't just take a tile, connect it to something somebody's already claimed, and then place a meeple and say, okay, hey, it's mine. Instead, you could start a different city near it, and if over time you subsequently draw a tile that allows you to connect it, then you and your opponent are now sharing those points. If somehow you or your opponent manage to get more meeples onto something than whatever your opponent or opponents already have, then you are actually getting all the points for that, and your opponents can't even take their meeples back. So there is a kind of catch-22 game of, do I work with somebody or do I try and steal all the points? Let's see where this goes. There's also an item of contention in this game called farmlands, and farms are they're honestly the hardest part of this game to explain, but once you get the hang of it, they make perfect sense. Roads and cities will actually split areas of land into pieces, so if a road's cutting off a section of grassland or farmland, it's considered its own piece of land. You can, during your turn, take one of your meeples and you can actually lay it down sideways rather than standing up on the farmland. You're basically claiming that area as your own, and it can be stolen just like everything else. Someone can try and sneak a meeple into a farmland by slowly connecting it. Farmlands are actually worth 3 points for every completed city at the end of the game. Any uncompleted cities do not count towards the total, however. The reason farmlands are risky is because once you've laid down a meeple sideways on a farmland, you're not getting it back. So it's a permanent claim of, I am attempting to get all of these points from this. So pick your farmlands wisely, because you don't want to wind up with no meeples left, and there's something you could have gotten a lot of points from if you'd claimed it. The game ends when the last tile has been placed. All remaining points are added up, and whoever has the most points is the winner.
Hi, and welcome to Component Breakdown with me, Jerry. This is the game of Carcassonne. One word describes the game of Carcassonne: cheap. Everything is cheap, 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 cheap. Okay? I'm aware it won the Spiel des Jahres in 2001. It's quite a prestigious game. And it also started a revolution in board gaming that has since catapulted into amazing games. But Fantasy Flight, this is not. This is a cheap game. Cheap cardboard stock, cheap game board with poor graphic design. I mean, the thing looks like it was photocopied onto cardboard. The instruction pamphlet is a single piece of crap paper. The meeples are represented by little pieces of wood that are poorly made. This whole game is cheap, 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 cheap. The worst part is there's nothing really even funny about it. I mean, it's just not fantastic artwork. It's not fantastic design by any means. With that in mind, I do realize that, once again, this was an earlier game, 2001. We're talking 11 years ago. This was before all of board gaming started revolutionizing in different ways, and before the fever that has what it has become now picked up. But at the same time, Monopoly's been around since 1918, and that looks damn good, okay? And it looked great in the 70s. So what is Carcassonne's excuse come 2001? Still looks kind of bad, all right? Look at the entire game. Just looks like it was poorly photoshopped onto cardboard and chopped up, and there you go. This game must have cost 2 cents to make, which is wonderful because the fine gentleman Klaus Jargon Word is very Reed is very rich right now. However, the rest of us are sitting here with a $50 game that is made of $2 worth of cardboard. It's a disaster. It really is. It's a disaster. So that is Carcassonne. Not much else to say about it except the fact that it's cheap. Cheap. Revolutionary, but cheap.
Hi there. This particular Boardgasm review will actually be done separately because I am attempting to distance myself from all the hate mail that Jerry may inevitably receive from this review. Carcassonne to me was one of the 3 gateway games that supposedly everybody goes through: Catan, Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne. And for most people, it's not one of the first 3. It's most people will have one of those 3 be a gateway game, but it was one of my first 3. And as a result, I do have a love for this game that does not apply to many other games, both it and all of its expansions. I enjoy the game. I like the strategy of it. I like the social aspect of it, of drawing the tile, hanging out with your buddies. It's a game that you can drink to it, you can watch a movie to it, you can do just about anything to it. I really do love Carcassonne. I don't consider it, perfection incarnate of a board game. I actually do rate it an 8 out of 10, but it's just one of those most beloved games. I've never gotten tired of it. I've probably played it over 1,000 times. I don't mind the artwork. For me, it's all about the gameplay, to be completely honest. It's just one of those beloved games that will always have a place on my shelf. Having said that, at this point in time, I now give you my good friend, despite what he may say, Jerry Arland. If you have any hate mail, you can find him on Board Game Geek. Thank you.
Most people who do board game reviews, specifically the bigger ones like Nichols and Vassal, Tom, they have a a very rich respect for board games history. And one of those things that comes up is Carcassonne, inevitably. It's part of the board gaming history. And that deserves to take into account when you were doing a review. However, I was not a part of board gaming at the time, and the history is not something that I take a look at. What I inevitably take a look at in my review is how a game plays now. And that's unfair in a lot of capacities, because certain games were designed 11 years ago, and they don't necessarily hold sway. You can't hold The Godfather to the level of entertainment as Taken, but you can appreciate the acting still. So we get to a convoluted point here, being that I don't like Carcassonne in the least. I don't think it's a well-constructed game. I don't think it's well designed. I think it's a piece of junk. Honestly, it's a series of cardboard printed material that they threw together in a bag. And there you go. The game itself doesn't lead to a fun experience. What it typically tends to do is lead people to clutch their little hoards of gold, sitting in the corner away from each other, not talking. The game ends up leading to not talking, not physically actually. There's nothing you need to talk about, really. There's no negotiations, nothing that needs to happen. So people sit there quietly, hoarding and planning. And what it leads to is a 2-hour game that is about road building. A 2-hour road building game, and that sums up the entire world of my critiques on this game. It is a 2-hour game about road building where nobody talks and nobody does anything except slowly lay down tile after tile. Then the end scoring always inevitably comes down to how outbalanced farms are as compared to how roads work. So the end result is whoever understands farms wins, and those who don't understand farms get the screw job, which makes it an incredibly hard game to actually teach to new people, because inevitably someone will play a farm, the new person won't quite grasp how farms work yet, and they will lose. So there is no first-time winners here. It is a how much have you played this game, your experience means the world type. And that is another point against it. All in all, I understand that Carcassonne is part of board gaming's legacy. I understand that it's a foundation on which many games were built, but I prefer those games, okay? And that makes me a Prometheist, which means I prefer the future to the past, which is, inevitably true. But I like newer games, and Carcassonne just makes me sad. I try to stop them every time they want to play it because I have no interest in playing this old, out-of-date game. I realize I want the Spiel des Jahres. It's just not for me. So, from my perspective, Carcassonne, taking into account its history, gives it another point. But besides that, the game still only escapes with a 3 out of 10. And I know that that will make me a much hated person amongst the board gamers, but we have a duty in this fun little thing we do to be honest with games. And I honestly feel that the game it isn't worth it. It's not worth your attention. It's not worth your time. Now, if you pick it up for Gen Con for $5, of course, play it. But otherwise, full retail value, this game it's not worth it. So, me, Jerry, from Boardgasm, saying 3 out of 10. Send those letters, America. Bring it on.
Wow, it got deep.
I got intense.
Got heavy towards the end there.
Fast.
So 8 out of 10 and a 3 out of 10. That's our biggest difference
It
ever.
averages out to a 5 out of
5 out of 10.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Well, America,
Yeah.
that was Carcassonne. Yeah. And this is our 10 year.
10th video. Well,
10th
not our 10 year. Dear God, one video a year.
Right on schedule.
Right on
now.
schedule, yeah.
Right now we are. To be fair, we make this work, even though we live in different parts of the country.
No, that's true.
Uh,
Pull it off somehow.
we pull it off.
A mammoth 3-day recording sessions.
Yep. So that this is our 10th anniversary, and and that
It
was
feels like it's taken that long.
and that was Carcassonne.
That was Carcassonne. Might as well have done a big one for our 10th video. Yep. Well, happy 10, America.
Happy 10.
Good night.
Get out of my house.
Okay.
America, not you. You're fine. But you should shut off the camera.